Gran Quivira at Tampiro Pueblo, abandoned in 1672, was one of the victims of the great contraction of the Pueblo world. It was a time when the world was out of balance. It was a time of death. The rain ceased to fall. The corn withered. Thousands of Pueblo people died in a great famine.
For 3 years, no crop has been harvested. Last year, 1668, a great many Indians perished of hunger, lying dead along the roads, in the ravines, and in their hovels.
That year, thousands died of starvation in Gran Quivira, Curay, and other pueblos. The elders and the children were the first to die, leaving a society bereft of its past and its future.
Giving food to the missionaries and giving food to the Spanish colonizers had a tremendous impact on the Pueblo economies. For example, at Taos, where the climate varies from season to season, and some seasons where you were able to reap a lot of corn and other years not being able to do that. Some years being lean in terms of hunting for venison and some years not. So it did have a tremendous impact on the economy. Many people were not eating as well as they used to.
The Apaches had mastered the horse, upsetting the balance between the Pueblo peoples and their nomadic neighbors. Their raids on the Pueblos came with increasing frequency. And then there was disease, a disease that struck both Indian and European. The Spanish attributed the deaths to witchcraft by Pueblo sorcerers. In 1675, the Spanish governor finally heeded the calls of the missionaries and arrested 47 alleged sorcerers and brought them to trial.
Naturally, the case was against them, and 4 men were condemned to die, and the others were to be whipped publicly. One of the men that was whipped was a man from San Juan Pueblo whose name was Pope, and the Spaniards called him Pope. He began to think about what should be done to retaliate.
Pope decided to go to Taos Pueblo, far away from the center of Spanish activity, and Taos needs to be given credit for giving protection to him and all the others that were planning the revolt.
The decision to fight, to go to war, probably took a lot of soul searching, a lot of input from various factions, various groups, various clans, various leaders within the Pueblo. And then to unite all the Pueblos, to unite each of these sovereign nations in a united effort to drive the Spaniards out of their lands. There must have been an awful lot of suffering that occurred that eventually drove them to that point.
It was a very ingenious plan. First of all, to communicate this plan to have the rebellion. It consisted of messengers running to all the various pueblos in New Mexico and into Arizona and informing them that this is going to happen, that they would create their own little rebellion within the village and kill the intruders.
The 3 spirits told Pope to make a cord of maguey fiber and tie some knots in it, which would signify the number of days that they must wait for the rebellion. The cord was taken from pueblo to pueblo by the swiftest youths under the penalty of death if they revealed the secret.
2 young men were appointed to carry the knotted rope, and each day as the sun came up, a knot would be untied. And on the last day that the knot was untied would be the day the action would begin. It didn't happen the way it was really planned. The 2 boys were discovered. They were brought to Santa Fe for trial. When the Tusuki people learned about it, they became extremely alarmed. Consequently, they killed a Spaniard that was at Tusuki. This was the beginning of the first successful revolt by a Native American organization against the Europeans.
On August 10th, 1680, the Pueblo warriors, by design, attacked the churches. August 10th happens to be St. Lorenzo's Day, and so the people knew that both Indian and non-Indians would be congregated in church. And it was in retaliation for what the church and civil authorities were doing to the Pueblo people.
Most of the villages, the churches were destroyed, and those people who were accepting of the Catholic faith were ousted from their villages, if not killed.
All of the Pueblos under the Spanish rule rose up against the yoke of Spain, and in some cases, as at Hopi, killed the priests, the Franciscan priests.
Within 3 days, over 400 Spaniards, men, women, and children, lay dead. 21 of New Mexico's 33 priests were killed. Churches, crosses, saints, and the symbols of Christianity were burned and destroyed. The Spanish governor and most of the colonists were trapped in Santa Fe, besieged by thousands of Pueblo warriors.
Indians from the pueblos of Pecos, San Cristobal, San Lázaro, San Marcos, Galisteo, and Cienega are one league from the Villa of Santa Fe, on the way to attack it and destroy the governor and all the Spaniards. They're saying that now God and Santa Maria were dead, and that their own God, whom they obey, never died.
They had a few days of standoff here. The Spanish guns, arquebus, against Pueblo bows and arrows, clubs, and stones. Naturally, the Pueblos were at a disadvantage, but soon decided that the only way they could dislodge the Spaniards were to cut up the water. And a few days later, the Spaniards had no water for themselves nor their animals.
Every day of the 9 days which the siege of Santa Fe lasted, more and more people assembled until the beasts and the cattle began to die because we had been entirely cut off from water. Being agreed that it was better to die fighting, his lordship advanced, and invoking the name of the Virgin, he routed and overran them and massacred more than 300 Indians. 47 Indians were taken prisoner in their houses. They were executed. But finding ourselves out of provisions with very few horses, threatened by the enemy and not being assured of water, it is necessary to leave. We have decided to withdraw.
The Pueblo peoples had a chance during the siege of Santa Fe to wipe out all of the Spaniards. And they stood to one side when their siege worked, and the Spaniards silently filed out, heading southward on their remaining horses and carrying what possessions they could carry. The Pueblo warriors made no effort to attack them. They just let them leave.
We are at quits with the Spaniards and the persons we have killed. Those of us whom they have killed do not matter, for the Spaniards are going, and now we shall live as we like.